Let's drop the green flag on this episode of the Talent Tank Podcast with your host, Wyatt Pemberton, bringing you the best, fastest, most knowledgeable personalities in ULTRA4 and off-road racing.
All right. Here we go. Everyone who dialed in today, dialed it up, clicked in, clicked on. Man, another episode. This is the right after Nationals, ULTRA4 Nationals. As you guys saw when you clicked on today, we've got Chip MacLaughlin, North Texas guy, philanthropist, cancer survivor, prankster, Texan, driver of the number 4 ULTRA4 4400 car. Chip, welcome to the show, man.
You, sir?
I'm so
good
happy
evening.
to have
How
you
are you,
on.
buddy?
As we keep talking over each other, that's a good way to get it started, man. Thank you for coming on, man. You've had you have so many good stories. I've known you for quite a while, but man, I hadn't had you on yet, even though I've been excited because of why.
Well, that's because you're going to use me as your emergency contact, and I don't know if that's a good thing for you or not, but yeah, I was your emergency backup.
Yeah, my break glass in case of emergency. And then the reason was, just when you're trying to almost nearly live record, this thing is going to, when people listen to this, they're going to be like, God, when do you record that? Obviously in the last week because of Nationals and timing. Yeah, we try to stay on the ball, and sometimes just schedules don't work out. I mean, I've been known to get on a plane and go interview a guy. I've jumped in a car and got a couple guys. There's just this constant, but since you're here in Texas, it's an easy one. And we talked about it. And then, to be honest, that actually becomes like offensive. Like, oh yeah, Chip's my backup, and you're like, fuck you, I'm not the backup. That's the only word. I know I dropped the F-bomb. I know I did, but that's the only one that fits there, right?
Nah, you're doing an awesome show, and just to even be asked to be on it, and even to be your emergency contact is an honor. And I'm just glad to be here, glad to be racing and having fun.
Well, and I haven't dropped, I didn't even lead in with that. You've broken your back. So there's like leaving that open for broke back jokes the whole rest of the episode. Yeah. I mean, I did just drop it right there, didn't I?
Oh, well, my phone's going off. Matt Enix is calling me.
God, Matt Enix. I was texting with him just a little bit ago. He's a proud American, little North Texas guy with you. I think, you guys.
He only lives like 30 minutes from me, I believe, so which is scary.
So
I run into that boy everywhere.
You're big spoon, he's little spoon?
We'll go with that. It makes it better for me.
We'll go with that. If you guys caught the live show this past weekend, you might have seen right off the start line, pretty much in every single drone shot was mowed into the field. It said HBD JT, happy birthday JT Taylor. That's who we're talking about. And Chip.
Yeah, I'm not sure who did that.
Right. Rufus Racing, literally they're doing their race prep, race pack, and they pack a 0-turn mower. This is planning. This is prankster level, next level. Yeah,
it was, that was Andy and Diamond's idea. Brad and I just happened to be the ones that executed it. That we knew that where we wanted to park was not where most of the racers park, and there might be tall grass. So we thought, well, maybe we should bring a weed eater or something. And Andy's like, no. We got the 0-turn, and this is what I think we should do. And I was like, that is the most brilliant thing I've ever heard in my life.
And if anyone caught the JT episode, which was back at Christmas for the Talent Tank, JT was here with me at Christmas at my house. He spent Christmas with us, and we love, what was his title? Director of Race Operations,
right?
Or something really high level,
Director of Birthdays.
Director of Birthdays. So my kids, they invaded the recording while JT's sitting across the desk from me and singing happy birthday because someone prompted him to.
Yeah. So funny, since that trip, he calls it windshield time. He calls everybody, he gets bored. He drives all over the country between Colorado and Florida. He called me, and I kind of put 2 and 2 together, knew he was going there and knew he was going to be on the program, and so I might have queued that up, but he doesn't call me anymore when he does that. I don't understand why.
Yeah, I wonder. You know what? I actually didn't hear him say anything about the mowing the stuff in the mowing that into the field. But that is the thing about it. See, you put it together. See, you've got a buddy that's kind of like that. Brad Christensen, he's your co-driver. You've known him most of your life. He saw me walking across that field carrying a Talent Tank interview kit, and he put 2 and 2 together. So he has fed me a ton of gotchas.
Yeah, I'm afraid. I kind of got wind that he had done that, and he laughed the whole time when he told me, and it scares me.
Just giggling like a squirrel. Yeah. No, I mean, they're good stuff. I mean, they really are, like burning down trucks. I mean, I don't know.
Just one or two.
He is apparently the one that coined the hashtag Chip Happens.
He is. Well, yeah, and it always happens to somebody else. That was leaving Hammers with Doug Jackson, I think, in 18, Doug's last race. And we're sitting in that windstorm trying to get out of Hammertown. And I'm like, it's getting hot in here. I'm going to go get my shorts out of the trailer. And I opened Doug's bus, and that wind took that door and ripped it off the hinges. And Doug was just so mad. He just sat there. And then Brad's like, Chip Happens. And it's stuck ever since.
Well, now it's even on your race cars. Like it's,
oh yeah.
Yeah. It's it's like on your visor on the, above the windshield, or it's not windshield. What do we call that in the
It's I don't know, visor, roof, whatever. I put it on there so we can distinguish, because everybody gets Andy and I's cars confused. So we put Chip Happens. And if somebody messes something up, well, I've got a bunch of stickers hidden, and they'll turn up in good places.
In great places. When someone overdrives, they literally blow a high pressure line on their talent tank.
Exactly. Oh yeah. It's, you get a Chip Happens sticker, your talent tank is empty.
Fully empty. Fully empty. Well, so let's dive into nationals, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff about you that we're going to talk about for the next hour and a half, or 2 hours, or however long we go. We'll get it all in there. But nationals, we're just coming off of them. They were just this past weekend. You qualified good at one point, and in the 4 car. It's an IFS tribe car built by Adam Shearer and his crew there in Fort Worth. On corrected time, you were way up there. Number 2, number 3.
Yep. Yeah. Second after lap A, third after B, and I had zero idea that we had gone that far. We started 16th, I believe.
But to finish first, you must first finish, right?
Exactly. And that was our plan. I was listening to Alan's deal, and I was messing with him. I was like, it's going to be checkers or wreckers. I guess I forgot to put up blowing up. But yeah, I came in, we came into nationals 10th. Brad and I did in a number 4 car. And I had a mission. I wanted to be top 5 in overall points. So, I mean, I did my homework, showed up early. We marked the course, walked the qualifying course, which I've never really done. And so I was going for it. And, things just happen out of your control.
And so what took you out was you lost the motor, but it was oil pressure. You lost oil pressure, and then that took you out. So what's the story around that?
So it's a dry sump motor. I had some issues with the oil light coming on, under heavy braking or jumps when I'm getting out of the gas up in a jump. And so, I'm used to the light blinking just instantly and coming right back off. And it started doing it, but it started doing it more frequently. And I kept asking Brad, dude, we got oil pressure? And he goes, yeah. Well, it kept coming on more and more. And then that Motec system lit up like a Christmas tree. And I'm like, all right, we got to go to the course. And I think it gave me about 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and it shut me down. As Diamond would put it, when I started it, it sounded like a 1980s heavy metal band. So we were out.
Well, like a drum full of rocks.
Exactly.
Oh, that's terrible.
It was unfortunate.
Then and then Zandy. So this is Team Rufus Racing, North Texas. You guys are a multi-car team. You guys have, how many 4,400 cars you guys have now? 3?
So we own 3. We only race 2.
Okay.
I call it the Tribe 16 Collector's Edition because all of them are tribes. It seems
That's
like
funny.
When a tribe car goes up for sale, we buy it. So the number 4 is on Doug Jackson's old car, the solid axle car, which I raced in Tennessee this year. And then Alex Wacker's IFS car that we bought right after Nationals last year. And then Zandy's got Nightmare that Keenan Leatherwood used to race.
That's right, Keenan's. And then that car, Keenan's old car, Nightmare, it went to the Demolition Ranch fella, right?
Yeah, Demolition Matt, yep.
Demolition Matt. And then it came back up to North Texas, right?
Exactly, yep.
I should have looked this up. What's Sandy's number? You're 4.
24.
He's 24. Yeah. But
right.
they
so in the UTV class, he's number 4 because 24 was taken, and I took another available UTV number to just harass 4,400 guy. I got the number 13.
Oh, yeah. So JT Taylor, imagine that. Like,
what are the odds, right?
So this whole, broke back and JT Crush. This is really pulling in JT's favor here, Chip. This is not looking good for you.
That dude is one of the coolest dudes I've ever met, and I love harassing him. And it comes back. I mean, the happy birthday thing, we started at in Sacramento. We saw him and Dave and the 4,400 group coming in, employees to come do their, employee meeting or whatever for dinner. And as growing up as a kid, my parents always used to embarrass us and say, sing happy birthday, get them to come put whipped cream on your face. And we came up with the idea to do it to JT, and it has happened at every race and it's got a life of its own now, actually.
Yeah, man, you guys, just getting him, something else. And he is a great guy. I do need to tell a quick ULTRA4 JT Dave story from this past weekend, because I think it's important to everybody. I've been, and and everyone listening knows, I've been fairly, I've been critical of ULTRA4 when it comes to timing and running races and being able to hang their hat on the results. I'm not gonna miss. I haven't minced words about it. Prior to Moab, before they brought in USAC, so we had just a fiasco, a couple of fiascos last year, the fiasco at KOH this year, the stuff in Tennessee. I've been critical, and I own that. I have. I've held their feet to the fire, and so in nationals, normally at a race, I'll go jump in the truck with Dave during doing race ops, and it's usually in this case it's JT and the F450, the red one that they've got sitting there. JT in the driver's seat, Dave in the passenger seat, just running race ops, and I just sit in the back seat. And normally, I've done this numerous races, but this one was particular. It was good. I was in there quite a while, just watching the lead changes, watching guys come across, Well, there had been a problem in the UTV race with timing, and then there'd been another problem in the EMC race with timing. And those guys, they'd gone to Alan Johnson. Alan walked the issue over to the F450, talked to JT, got Dave, to listen to it, then walked away. And Dave sits there, he pops up his laptop. He already had open. He went to the right files, started just walking it through the tracker, walking it through the yellow brick, walking it through timing. And then he radioed down to the timing trailer, print me out all the stuff for this car. And it was, in this case, it was Lesage in the UTV race. And the difference was, it actually changed the national outcome, the national points outcome of that because of this issue. And the points were made. And, I've been in that truck for a couple hours. So I was like, you know what? I'm out of here. and no kid.
Timing's been an issue. And, I haven't been, very vocal about it. I have been with, honestly, with JT and Dave, because honestly, in Kentucky and Tennessee last year, I was affected. Brad and I in our car were affected. Tennessee, we were pulled off a lap early, and mistakes happen. The guys are doing the best they can and with what they have. And Dave came to me and gave me a solution, and I agreed with it, and we went on our day. Not everything can be perfect, but I respect what those guys do. And listening to Dave and some of his ideas in the drivers' meeting this past weekend, we're going some cool places, and he's realizing, he can't do everything. I'm one of those guys. It's like, I wanted to make sure I do it because it's going to be right. And, with the race team and work and everything else, you just kind of step back, and Dave's done that. I was really surprised to hear he's going to take off after Hammers for the rest of the year.
That shocked me as well. But I get it, right? He's actually put some really great, powerful people in the right places between, and it's a team. It is a total team between JT and Ryan Thomas and Scott Hartman and even Roxy and Murch and Alan Johnson and Travis Walter. The list goes on and on and on, and you can't stop. But I want to go back to this USAC issue. Dave turns, in the seat and leans back and goes, oh, hell no, Wyatt. No way. You sit there, you listen to the SHIT that goes down. You sit out, and I'm like, that is freaking fair. Absolutely. I'll sit here and I listened to all of it. And then, it got to the point where you needed to go down to the timing trailer and have them walk through each lap every time and there was three timers for you to go across at this race. There's 3 different segments. And so the times to walk down there, and I could sit in the truck, I could get out and go elsewhere. And I got out and I said, hey, I'm going down to the timing trailer and I'm going to see this whole issue from cradle to grave, from where it started to a resolution, and went down there and those guys. So I got to see exactly what went on in the timing trailer and what they're looking at and how they're looking at it. And the fact that they have video of every single time a car trips the wire.
Right.
So not only is the transponder linking up with satellites in space and being logged, it's also being logged on video, and they could roll the video forward and back, and the timestamp is identical. I mean, they are spot on. And we rolled through it, and yeah, as it turned out for Lesage, it was wrong. The way they'd set it up, they made it throw out any lap that was less than 10 minutes because they believed that was an error. And because he had missed, well, it's kind of what affected Blyler. It's exactly what affected Blyler, and Blyler throwing away the national points title, accidentally, having to end up doing lap B twice because he missed the entrance to lap B, because when you came off the short course, you had to go left to A or right to B. And
that happened to one of our guys, Malcolm, in the UTV class. And then going back and watching the live feed when I got home, it happened to Eric Miller too. And he caught it in time where he could spin around a tree and go back. But I mean, when you put the visor down, I mean, as JT says, you become stupid, and that stuff happens.
Well, I'll even add to that. It's not just stupidity. I don't think it's stupid. Well, I mean, it can be, don't get me wrong. It can be, but we're talking about Blyler. This guy is, calculated. He's in the national points contention. He won King of the Hammers. He's won national points a year ago. So he's the current defending, the defender of the national points title. This guy knows it. I mean, he's the guy right now in my book. And he made all the right decisions on lap 1 and lap 2, and this is lap 3, and he made the mistake. So the thing for me is, this is endurance. It's off-road endurance racing. Endurance also means the human. It means the body. It means mentally, are you beat up? And this course was a hard course, no?
No, it was, honestly, I liked this course more than any course we've had out there because, we had what I call the desert section, which was A. Now, it was not a fast, like just in the sand. You could go fast. You were in the dust, but you had rock mines everywhere, the size of Volkswagens. And, so you had to be calculated and technical there, but go fast. Then Loop B had mud bogging, hill killing,
driving through rivers,
water crossings. I mean, everything else that you don't get in the desert. So, as ULTRA4 as the ultimate, car that can do anything, this to me was the best test of that out of any of the races we've ever done.
And the short course, and it had short course
in short course too. Yeah, I forgot about that part too.
So man, you brought it up. Lap A, it looks, and people watched on video, it looks wide open fields. There's no trees, but if you get a foot off a course, what's sitting there?
It's funny because, I raced, this was my third time racing there. First time I raced was with, when I was co-driving with Doug Jackson. He got sick and I ended up having to fill in for him. That was the mud race, the first time we ever raced out there. And there was cars sunk to the, top of the door bars.
Is that the one where it flooded? Also, everyone got, you got trapped on one side or the other side of the entrance? Cause you drive through a pretty good water crossing to get into the park.
You could, the night that, before when we were supposed to have qualifying, that's when the tornadoes came through, and Brad and I were actually sitting in Doug's race trailer and we could hear the sirens going off. And I said, look, if there's a tornado coming, I said, we're strapping into the car. And if the trailer starts flipping, I'm firing it and we're going out of the back of this trailer. I was like, I think that's the safest place we could be because I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, you're in a roll cage.
Exactly. So the next year when I raced the car as me being the driver, I came up on Shannon Campbell on the last lap, and Shannon can't hear the best. And, he doesn't pay attention to other people. And I come up behind him. He had no brakes, did the siren. Brad's like, just pass him. I'm like, I'm not getting out of this 2-track because there's going to be a Volkswagen that's going to take us out. So I nudged Shannon Campbell, which was probably the worst mistake I've ever done in my life. He moved over and he returned the favor because he thought, I was like, oh, some punk's just seeing me wounded. I'm going to show him. Well, he forgot he had no brakes, and he KO'd the back of my car, ripped his front wheel off, and Peanut was riding with me then. He goes, I've never seen you drive so fast. I'm like, I didn't want to get hit by Shannon Campbell again. And I did not want to get out of those 2 tracks.
And they had one of the funniest stories I heard out of this race was Waylon overshot a turn, shot off. He got kind of high centered, hit a rock. He was able to throw it in reverse. And just as he's throwing it in reverse, Brian Croft, his soon to be brother-in-law, comes over the rise and just hits him in behind and just smokes him in the back.
I saw the aftermath. I thought he blew a radiator or something, but what he did is I guess he moved a bar or something and it shorted the winch out and it started a fire. So when Reed came by him, he had a bunch of smoke coming out of the front. It looked like radiator, but it was actually electrical fire.
Oh man. See, I didn't know about the electrical fire, but that does make sense for what I saw. And then Shannon, he didn't have, he broke some stuff.
He rolled down Devil Slide too.
I will say this, Ryan Miller driving for Bailey completed between Bailey and he completed every mile in 4,400 this season.
That is,
a feat.
That was one of my goals. And when we were in Moab, I had my steering rack lose an O-ring 4 miles from the finish and it put me out. And I was like, man, granted with what happened at this race, we wouldn't have made it either, but I was still in the hunt when we were in Moab right up to the last lap. And I think that says a lot. Only 2 people out of, how many we have at Hammers? Over 100. Yeah. Right at 100. So 2 people, did every lap. This just shows you how hard this racing is.
Who was the other car? There was another car that did it. It wasn't just Bailey and Ryan did it in Bailey's car. There was another car listed. I think
it was Bailey Cole.
Was it Bailey Cole? It was Bailey Cole. I don't. No. Well, I don't know. Did they count? I guess they're not counting Crandon.
Well, Crandon wasn't a points race. Well, that's different. He went fishing on that one.
He did. Anyone that watched the qualifying on Friday of the 4,400 race at Nationals, his pit crew, awesome crew of guys. Just outstanding. Travis took and put colored cellophane, I guess, over his cowl light. So he had red on the passenger side and green on the driver's side. So it was That's like beautiful. A boat. Yeah, right. Red, right, returning. And
That's beautiful.
And it was very obvious until he fired up the ambers. As soon as the amber fog, amber floods came on,
right,
it washed out the red. You really couldn't tell. But from a side angle as the car was going, it looked like a boat. Like you could see the red and the green. It was that,
I'm glad we can sit here and laugh about that because that was
it could have
been a very scary event. And he's taking it like a champ. And there's a lot of different ways that outcome, could have ended, and it happened the best way. But, for us to be able to make jokes about it and do that, I think that's great because it shows the resilience of our guys. And, we keep going. And then he raced the car the next day. It was like
insanity. Motor was fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Motor's fine. Well, let's, granted, last weekend Nationals was very good. It's really sad to see the 2021 season come to a close. The 2020 season come to a close. Wow. I told Dave.
I was thankful.
Yeah, right.
Like, hey, I'm in a time warp. Yeah. Get out of this crap.
I haven't had to tell Dave after awards. I said, man, I really, congratulations. I really think you guys did a very, very good job making lemonade out of lemons. This year has been total crap. And based on where all the races were scheduled and Reno not being able to let them go without more than a week's notice and all that was, that this team with ULTRA4 was able to look around and pivot. I think that's the key word of 2020 is pivot when it comes to businesses. And they pivoted as best as you could. And the racers stuck through it and showed up, and you got Moab, you got here. I think ULTRA4 did a great job. As critical and I am a person that's critical of them. I will say that the timing issues and what I saw from USAC, I don't know if my stamp of approval means anything, but I did watch the Lesage issue go from beginning to resolution, and the driver Lesage, he was happy with the outcome. Dave was happy with the outcome, and me, I got a high level of confidence in now what that program looks like to make it work, and I have confidence in it now. So where I'll tell you, I had no confidence in timing, which makes you look like a laughing stock and makes sponsors and companies not believe. Well, they don't believe the results. If I'm going to put my money behind a guy, and
you want we pay a lot of money to go do this. And, I kind of take 2020 for ULTRA4. it's kind of like a reset. We got to try some things that we've never done before. Where we got to go race in Moab at Area BFE, which has been typically closed off. And so, we got to try different things, nationals in Oklahoma. Who would have ever thought we were going to be racing nationals at Oklahoma? To me, that was an advantage to me over Reno, because you got guys like Vaughn Getton and Lauren and Levi and Shannon Campbell, the guys that have a lot of short course, that plays in their favor in Reno. Well, it levels the playing field when we got all these other things that we, 110 miles or 105 miles, whatever it was, that changes things a lot.
Absolutely. Well, it was good stuff. Well, hey, let's get out of current affairs real quick and jump into the Chip Show, and let's talk about you, North Texas guy. You grew up, I believe, in the Plano area. Is that right?
Yeah, I was actually born in Houston. Okay. Lived in Houston until second grade, and then moved to Plano, and that's where I lived till I graduated high school.
And that said about Houston, so I never really said, we've met, so I've known you basically from Pirate, from back to the archaic days of Pirate back in the early 2000s. But when did we actually first meet physically in person? It's only been the last couple of years.
The first time that you and I were actually at the same place together was at Spring Creek, and I think it was a Mo-Rock race. And I blame you for competing against Kelly Kaiser on selling ORI struts, because you come out of the corner of that triple nickel car, and I'm like, how is that dude not flipping over? And I went over and looked, and I was like, what are these Ori things? And so in my brilliant deal, I was like, well, I'm going to start selling them. And so that was 09. Gotta be 08, 09.
Yeah, that car, I remember racing. So we raced King of the Hammers 09 in that car, and then the Mo-Rock thing came up, and they gave me a hard time. Like, hey, this race is basically local Houston. I mean, for me, I think it was an hour drive or ish. I can't skip a race like that, but I hadn't prepped the car. The car was still exactly how it was at King of the Hammers. And I actually timed out. I'd actually broke the chassis at some point. We had it welded on course. And then, so when we got shut down at a checkpoint, well, I drove race speed all the way back to main pits and put it in the trailer. I was, pissed off. Right. I mean, the car was still in great shape, except for I broke this, this chassis point. Well, so yeah, we still had Hammers dust on it when we raced it at Mo-Rock, but I don't remember meeting you there. But I do remember.
I don't know if we met. You and I were virtual friends, and hell, I even had been to your house to give you, deliver a bunch of tubing.
Yeah, so I bought steel from you. I bought, inch and 3/4 DOM from you. Yeah. And
when I had Pringle Fat. Well, I still have Pringle Fat, but that's when I actually had my shop.
And it was funny. Like, I was like, I'm not going to be there. I can't be there. Like, it's fine. So my wife comes home, like, there's piles of pipe in our yard. Right. And it was in the driveway. It was like, oh yeah. Chip's been there. No, man. Yeah. So, but you've been a friend. Yeah. Yeah.
We met physically. It was around the fire at Hammers, I think, 2 years ago.
Yeah. So it seems crazy that, let's call it a 15-year relationship, online boyfriends, when you,
exactly. It's the way it always goes.
So it didn't feel like you were a stranger to me. It was just, we just physically haven't been in the same room together. It's like, it's like 2020, but Zoom calls.
Exactly. We just gave each other crap in person instead of over Pirate or Facebook or whatever.
It was solid. So you were born here in Houston, and then you ended up in North Texas.
Correct.
And then you graduated. Were you in Plano during the whole black tar heroin?
That happened era? Right after me. And, I was fortunate. I tell people I grew up in Plano during the week, and then my family, we have 1,000 acres just outside of Dallas, up near Nocona, Texas. So Friday after school, me and my buddies would load up in the truck and we'd go to the ranch. So I wasn't in Plano a lot during the weekend. And, I'm thankful for my parents that we got that experience where I didn't get into the drugs, and it was bad. I was clueless. It happened right about the time that I graduated and was really bad after I left. Not because I left.
I hung out in college. I dated a girl that was from Plano, and she, this is the late 90s at this point, and she brought the whole black tar heroin thing up, and I was like, what are you talking, like, I'm at that point, small town Kansas, Paola, Kansas, me and Miles and Kelly Kaiser.
Yeah, that's, you probably should have had some black tar.
It's a boomer metropolis. Now Paola's pretty famous, there's quite a few famous people from that little burg. It's kind of a little ridiculous how many famous people are from that little town. But that aside, so yeah, your dad, your mom, you guys had this ranch north of town, north of the DFW Metroplex, and you guys got out there all the time, right?
Yeah, I think mom and dad bought it probably, I think it was 82, 83. So I was about 10. And, I was driving at 9 cars and on motorcycles at 7. So that's where we went, and that was our haven. Dad would, the rule was as long as we stayed on the ranch, we were good. And we pushed that envelope a lot. But there's a lot of good things that came from that. I learned how to weld and build things and drive tractors. And, I had city life during the week and ranch life on the weekend. And I couldn't ask for anything better.
And I mean, looking at yourself and, listening to Talent Tank and other guys and just knowing other guys in Ultra 4, isn't it really crazy the parallels that we can draw from like the collective stories that are so similar, and the fact that now we're, 30, 20, 30, 40, 50, even 60-year-old guys out racing, like the parallels, they're so similar, like all of us on dirt bikes, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, farm kids are learning how to fix it, or dad was a mechanic and teaching us everything. That's so insane that, birds of a feather flock together. Doesn't matter the age, right?
Right. And that's where, like today's generation, I worry is like, we're out on the ranch. We didn't have internet and TV. I mean, we had TV, but out of the ranch, we didn't even have telephones out there. And so, you break something, you got to figure it out. You might not fix it the right way, but, it got done. And I can even think back that shit happens way back then by ripping barn doors at dad's barn or dropping hay bales on the highway or, whatever. So, I mean, but those are valuable lessons. I mean, most people learn from make mistakes.
And that's where I feel today, man. Like my own son, he's not experiencing that. I left the farm, I got away from that, and I'm living suburban America, and he knows how to swing a baseball bat way better than I could. But outside of that,
well, where you live, and I'm familiar with Sugar Land in that area with the hurricanes and things like that. You should be a good swimmer and be able to rebuild a house. I mean, how many times have y'all been hit by a hurricane?
or good at roofing? How crazy is this? Today is 10/28 when we're recording this. A couple days before Halloween. You guys are going to listen to this and be like, well, obviously last week a hurricane came ashore 2 hours ago, southeast of New Orleans.
Yep.
How nuts is that? Hurricane Zeta. Yeah, it was a Cat 2 even. That's nuts.
Yeah, I left. I mean, kind of jumping around a little bit. I left Plano right after high school, ended up at A&M in Galveston for a couple of years, but ultimately I ended up in New Orleans and graduated University of New Orleans and spent 10 years there. And, here I'm reading this week on Facebook, one of their power turbines has gone down. That means they can't run all the pumps. So, they're closing all the floodgates and stuff today. And granted, it's only a Cat 2, but, Bourbon Street's, I think, 6 or 8 foot below sea level. So is the rest of the areas around there. I mean,
that's right.
I worked the hurricanes, Katrina, and, with my job, I've been at all the hurricane, rescue stuff and seen some pretty scary things. So a Cat 2 hurricane going to New Orleans, that's kind of scary to me.
That's
my son's living there now.
Yeah, Cat 2 is up to 115 miles an hour. I mean, that will mess something up.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not really the winds. It's New Orleans. It's all about the flooding. I mean, that's what Katrina was. Storm
surge, man.
Yeah,
just pushes all the way up the Mississippi, and then everything there on the Pontchartrain and everything there in the swamps around there. Yeah, it's something else, man. Well, I mean, we'll see what tomorrow looks like for those guys, but yeah,
Doug Jackson will be busy with Operation Airdrop, and which is just a cool organization, and started because of the hurricanes. We've been a part of that, and so I'm eager to talk to him tomorrow, see what we can do.
Yeah, so I absolutely going to go into the philanthropy work of Chip, because that's a full line item of the things that you've done and that you do on a regular basis. But I'll jump into man, Edie, your wife, you guys both cancer survivors.
Yes, sir.
Right. I think she's 5 years.
9/11 was her 5-year anniversary of being cancer free from stage 3 breast cancer.
And then she ended up did she have the double mastectomy?
Yeah, she only had to have one, but
okay,
it was safer to go ahead and just do both and have reconstructive. And she had a hell of a fight, chemo and radiation, and it was a hard battle. She made it through though.
And then out of that, though, she refused. If I heard this story right, now I could obviously, Brad, he's my background guy, on
Right.
this, and there's some other people that I may be wrong here, but you guys got engaged, but then she refused to marry you if she didn't have hair.
Correct.
I love this woman.
And that was one of the things. She went and bought a wig when she first got it, and I looked at it, and I'm like, that's just horrible. Don't wear that wig. And she was the most beautiful bald person I've ever met in my life, and she rocked it. I mean, we'd go to concerts or whatever, and she'd get freaked out because people would touch her head. It was like weird for them. She owned it, and, that was our fight. We made it very public. I was even at nationals. I'd gone up there to support the Twisted Monkey guys, and Lauren and Shannon and Bailey Campbell, and we got all the racers to go through, and we made a video of her because she couldn't come up there. She had just had her double mastectomy, and every one of them wished her well. It was a pretty cool, emotional video just to have all the ULTRA4 people support her, and we took an ULTRA4 shirt, and everybody signed it. And she came back and cried when we gave it to her. She's got it in her memory box today.
That's our family, right?
Yeah.
That's
we got to take care of each other.
So you guys end up getting married. How many years ago is this now? 3 years ago?
So we got married 3.5 years ago. We planned the whole wedding in like 2 weeks. We're driving back from Houston. My daughter lives down in Houston. She's like, all right, I'm ready. And I'm like, for what? She goes, to get married. I'm like, don't tease me. I was like, she goes, just pick the date. Well, April Fool's Day was 2 weeks later. So we got married on April Fool's Day.
Which is pretty fitting for you, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Spot on. And
People
then
didn't know if it was a real wedding or if it could come casual because we got married on the ranch. It was quite entertaining, and I even made it look like I got arrested on our wedding day, and most people saw through it, but a few didn't.
A few didn't.
Like my mother.
And then what was the point where you were diagnosed with prostate cancer?
So we got married April 1st. Oddly enough, we're talking about the hurricanes. I was loading my truck up and I was going to borrow a boat, and I was coming down to Houston to help with the hurricane, and all the names.
So was this 17 for Harvey?
Yep, it was for Harvey. That's exactly what it was. And I'm loading at 7:00 in the morning, and my doctor called, and he was like, "Hey, I need you to come in." I'm like, "Dude, I'm leaving. I'm headed to Houston to go help recover." He goes, "You have cancer. I was hoping that I was calling to tell you didn't have it, but you really need to come in." And that was probably one of the worst days of my life. Turned out well, and so I just postponed my trip 2 days, and that's actually when Doug Jackson and I and a number of other people came up with Operation Airdrop was that week.
And before we close out the cancer thing, all of this, because the philanthropy and Operation Airdrop is super important to me as well, as you guys went through, you and you've gone through, divorces and, just adversity upon adversity, and the fact that you guys finding each other, finding love, in your 40s is hard. I mean, the dating scene and the way, by the way, not even the scene, the way that people date today and meet people today is just, it's freaking foreign to me. Like, yeah, it's insane. It's like, if it's online only, like if it's weird, like I think you met Edie in like a Mexican food restaurant, but that is like a minority story today. Like that doesn't happen.
It's not Match.com or, any of these other dating websites. I was innocently sitting, came into a bar and sat at the bar at the restaurant, and she was sitting catty corner, and we were talking to the waiter who knew, or the bartender that knew both of us, and she was telling stories about her daughter, and her and I just started talking, and that's where it went. And so that was that was in 2013.
Was she involved at all in not ULTRA4, just off-roading? Did she Jeep? Did she anything? Or did you just freshly plucked her out of the herd, out of Gin Pop? You plucked her and dumped her into chaos.
First time I took her for a ride in my car, she's like, "You do what?" And I took her for a ride, and we were out at the ranch, and I went to go up this ledge, and she goes, "We're going up that?" I'm like, yeah. She screamed, and she's like, "All right, I want to do that again." I said, "Well, cool, because we're going to Dirt Riot Nationals in Bridgeport in a couple of weeks." So I took her to that. And this is a funny story, and I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for telling the story. We had just met, probably dating a couple months, 3 months. Brad and I are in my old Jimmy's 4x4 car with ORIs, racing Bridgeport. and I have an issue. I didn't hook up the steam ports on the LS motor correctly. I just capped them off. I had no idea that you had to reroute that stuff. I mean, that's how far back we go. So I'm walking around the pits, and she's sitting there reading a book of all things, and she got sunglasses on, and I see her eyes over sunglasses, and she's watching somebody walk by, and I'm watching, and I'm laughing. And it's Andrew MacLaughlin. Andrew's walking. He's got no shirt on. It's back when Andrew was working out. I'm like, what are you doing? She was, nothing. She was checking Andrew MacLaughlin out. I'm like, look, I spell my last name the right way with M-A-C. He spells it wrong. That's M-C. So you got to be with me. So that was her first race ever, was at out there Dirt Ride in Bridgeport Finals.
Because I always find those stories funny when, you know, you talk to a guy who brings their spouse or fiance or whatever, and they had nothing to do with anything off-road. And then they're like, wait, you get in your truck and trailer and you drive to California race, and then you go to Pennsylvania and race, and then you go to Oklahoma. Who does that?
Yeah, exactly. And what was even funnier is, you know, last year we go out, you know, with Doug Jackson. I keep bringing Doug's name up, but Doug and I and Brad and Zandy and Andrew MacLaughlin and his wife and Chris Shaw from Axis and all this, we go out down to the
y'all went sailing. Yeah, you guys went sailing together.
You might have been giving me some antics to upset people. Mr. Pete, but I kept telling the story. She's like, will you just stop telling that story? Because Andrew and his wife were there. I'm like, of course I'm going to tell the story. It was great.
Oh, made Andrew's day. Poor Edie. No, yeah. Well, I mean, we'll bounce to that. Wow. Anyone that listens to this and knows me, I love the sailing. I have no idea why, or how. It's now I feel like it's my thing. And I owe it all to Doug Jackson. I owe it all to Ultra4, you know, like our group, our family, you know. Well, I've shared a boat with Dave Cole and his ex-wife. So
we owe a lot of the rules because of you and Dave Cole and Shannon Campbell and Terry Madden and
Clay
the dents in the side of the boat. And, you know, yeah, we got shut down a bunch because, like, hey, I know what group you came from.
Oh, yeah, I know the genesis of where you came from. So, yeah, the last time we were down there, we took a bunch of folks from my neighborhood. And one thing we did in Joost Van Dyke in the BVIs, swim over at night. Yep. Little SEAL Team 40 plus.
Yep.
Little roll of duct tape. And you know where the bow lines come down off either side of the catamaran, and they go through a mooring ball. So it's one rope from one side of the boat, goes down through the mooring ball and comes back up, and the boat just kind of stays there moored up. Well, what we did was pulled those lines together for about 18 inches and wrap duct tape around them right at the ball.
Yeah.
So this is pretty sweet. You're like, well, what exactly that is? Just duct tape. Well, in the morning when they got on there, the two guys walked up and they just undo it off the cleats and they throw the rope to get off the mooring ball. And guess what? That rope, it doesn't go through the eyelet. So they're still hung up.
You gave me that idea, and we had the night before you gave me that idea to do that to Doug and him, we actually had snuck on their boat. Clay Gilstrap was down there, Chris Shaw. They were all on this boat. We had gotten on their boat while they were eating dinner and stole Melinda Jackson's A&M flag.
Oh,
took it off,
like
went
fighting
back
words
to our boat, put it on our sail, and went back and were very obvious. And they're like, "Oh, we caught you. You're not getting away with anything." I'm like, "You have no idea what we've done." And yeah, it's the prank wars out there are just as bad as King of the Hammers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, somewhere in there. They get there.
Somewhere.
They get there. Circling back to the cancer, man. You guys went through like this massive amount of adversity, you know, with
right.
marriage and kids and putting together the Brady bunch with your kids and Edie's kids, and then her going through cancer and you being, you know, the rock for her through that. And then you also getting cancer. I mean, fuck cancer. I mean, that's the only word for it. Fuck cancer.
Yeah. It was like we couldn't get away from it.
And
it was bad news. It was rough on us. And I mean, actually, almost took our marriage. I mean, I can't blame it on cancer, but just the emotions and the physical changes for both of us. I mean, it's not a pretty disease. I'd like to hear that they find a cure for it. I was fortunate that I caught mine early on accident. I have ADD and take medicine, and they found out my blood work. I had no symptoms. And they're like, okay, we're going to do a biopsy and I'll call you in a week and say, yeah, you don't have cancer. Well, they called me in a week and said, not only do you have cancer, we got to get you in like now. And I ended up having stage 2 prostate cancer, the youngest one my doctor had ever diagnosed.
Oh, man. 48.
So he said, I guess the most powerful thing he told me in the recovery part of it, I guess when you're 50 is when you're supposed to get your prostate checked. That's kind of the going age. He goes, if you would have waited like doctors tell you, he goes, you wouldn't have made it. And that was pretty eye-opening and sobering to hear.
I mean, it meant there was a reason, right? There was
Yeah.
something you hear about those. I mean, somebody kind of looking out for you. You guys have now been together. How long have you been married? I think I asked you, sorry, but
3.5 years.
Yeah, 3.5 years. Yeah, but you've been together a lot longer than that. That's something else. And seeing Edie this weekend, good times. She is definitely fun. She keeps you square. Attempts. I say attempts to. I shouldn't say she does. She attempts to.
She tries her best. I mean, she's short, but she's mighty, as I say.
Here's the thing that shocked me about you, and I would have never guessed it, that you are a mechanical engineer.
I am.
You have an ME.
The funny part is I didn't go get my mechanical engineering degree to be an engineer. I wanted to understand how things worked and how I could build things personally. I knew I didn't have the mentality to sit behind a desk and be an engineer. And it was something I wanted to prove to myself. And it was a hell of a ride trying to do it. It took me 6-7 years to get it. I don't test well, in the classroom settings where I'm sitting next to guys and they're inventing formulas to come up with stuff. But, my senior design project was something called the Mini Baja, and it had to float. Well, all these genius engineers that I'm friends with didn't know how to weld or put a wheel on, and so we're sharing a shop with like the electrical engineers. They're building a solar car. Well, guess who built their solar car? I mean, they did all the connections and solar panels and all that, but they didn't know what brakes, how to hook up brakes or do a cage ride or whatever.
Or bleed them or any of that.
Exactly. Or drive it.
So you were the guy, right?
It was me and a couple other guys that had the same mindset that I'm still friends with today. That was like just a personal goal for myself. And, I kept telling myself when I got out of school, I'm never going in oil and gas and I'm never going to be an engineer. So my first job right out of school was an engineer in oil and gas at ExxonMobil and Chalmette. And I was designing pipelines and I was bored. Thank God I got laid off from that job 9 months later. And I went into sales after that. And that's what I did for 20 years. But on the electrical side, which is the more entertaining part, it went on the mechanical side.
But still in oil and gas, though.
Yeah, I was in oil and gas probably till about a year ago. Actually, 5 years ago, while I'm back in Dallas, I actually was a water resource engineer. I built pipelines and frac tanks and recycle plants out in West Texas for an oil gas plant. Oil took a dive, got laid off again, and went back into sales. And then a year ago, went to work for Zandy, and here we are now.
And here we are now. Yeah. So, I'm in oil and gas myself, and I think everyone kind of knows that you almost can't be in Houston and not in it. And yeah, it's people. I mean, I've had these discussions, and I'm like, yeah. I mean, I've lived every day of my professional career life expecting it to be my last day at that job, like every single day. You don't know, and so you don't keep personal effects at work or things like that. Like, no, I mean,
my eeriest oil and gas thing is funny because I'm not in oil and gas now. I run a construction company for Zandy. That's what I do in my day job. And oddly enough, we're almost done with it. We're helping build a hospital in Pecos, Texas. And so I went out there to go visit the job site, and that was the day that oil went negative $30.
It went minus 30. Oh.
And I'm like in Pecos, Texas that day, and with COVID and everything shut down, I'm like, I just don't know how we're going to survive this.
Yeah, COVID was just starting to come on. So we were in February when it was, about February the 21st, 24th,
something like
somewhere
that.
in there. And COVID, it was a topic of discussion, but nothing had really been shut down yet. For me, COVID didn't become real for a few more weeks. We were in West Palm Beach, Florida, Houston Astros spring training. It was the Astros versus the Nationals, and it was the last preseason game that Major League Baseball played or the Astros played in Major League Baseball. They shut down spring training the next day, but we were sitting there in the stands. Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo is going on. This town shuts down for Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo.
It's wild, isn't it?
Oh, it's glorious. It's 3 weeks of chaos and coolness and everybody wearing cowboy hats and boots no matter what it is. And if you're at work and you're like, hey, I gotta go work my shift or whatever because you're a volunteer your boss is like, see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, most likely the boss was probably there too.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it as well. So yeah, my wife and I are sitting in the stands with our kids in West Palm Beach, and we get that text, the notification that they've closed Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo for COVID. And we're like, whoa, what are we missing? You don't shut that thing down. Like, what are we missing? And yeah, I guess we've missed a lot. So we freaked out a little bit. We finished our vacation and came back. But yeah, no. So you're in Pecos, which is the Delaware Basin.
Right.
Kind of the current, for Houston West, for Texas oil and gas, it is you're west of, you're west of No Trees.
Exactly.
And clearly
it's like racing away here. Nobody's out here, so might as well.
Yeah. And you're a little bit, no, not even really east. You're straight north of, where do we have the ULTRA4 race out on I-10?
No, that was in, that was right near El Paso.
Blanco,
Texas. Blanco, Texas.
Sierra Blanco,
which was one of the coolest races ever. And I wish we could go back. And there's a lot of issues with that, but that was one of the most fun races outside of the race with the sheriff and all the things, the shenanigans that went on. It was just crazy.
Yeah, that sheriff, he bragged about he'd arrested Willie Nelson, right? Because the Border
that was
Patrol
his claim to
checkpoint.
fame.
Yeah.
And he had those stickers that said, don't be a pussy if you didn't jump the city street, because we were coming down the creek and you'd have to go through the church parking lot, jump the street. And I think it was one of the Gomez brothers. They cartwheeled off of it. Clay Gilstrap, a funny story about this. Clay Gilstrap had a steering problem, so he rolled over the street. This is when I was riding with Doug Jackson. I was co-driving. The sheriff comes wandering in our camp. He goes, "You Clay Gilstrap?" I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Good. I'm putting a sticker on your car." I said, "Go ahead." It was Doug's car. So, but at the same time, that's when the memory's kind of fuzzy on this, but I think it was one of Shannon Campbell's guys. The sheriff gone over to Shannon Campbell's camp, and one of his guys stole the sheriff's truck. And the sheriff pulled him out of the car, put him in handcuffs, and said, "I tell you what, I'm going to make you a deal. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. You can run or I can take you to jail." That dude took off running, and that sheriff started just laughing because, "Man, I'm just messing with you." He's like, "Come back, I'll take him off." But it was a cool deal because the whole town shut down for us. I mean, we started on Main Street in downtown, on asphalt, and nobody thought that, you were talking about timing issues. Nobody thought the timers were working. I mean, I think Shannon Campbell got clocked at 120 going down the asphalt after we went under the I-10 bridge. I went back and looked at all that thing, and I'm going to tell you, those timers were right on. He's
getting after it. Yeah, that was fun. And the course ran right next to Mexico. You could walk across the border from Texas to Mexico.
Andrew MacLaughlin got out of his race car, walked across the river, and took a picture and said, "I'm in Mexico," and then he walked back.
Yes, that's exactly how it was.
We were on the border.
And people talk about, well, you need a border fence and border walls and all that stuff. Well, it's so remote, it's so rural. I mean, there's almost no way to defend it, no way to put it out there, and it's
no. And I think that was one of those deals. I think it was Matt Howell and Adam Shearer. They had a problem with their car, and so they're like, "Okay, we're just going to get on the service road and drive it back to pits." Well, the service road was under construction. They ended up on I-10 in the race car with their helmets and had to go through customs checked.
Yeah, the Border Patrol check.
Yeah, it was the greatest. I mean, I think he had a GoPro or someone. The video is classic.
We need to get that up. I've not seen video of that, but I knew the story. Yeah.
Maybe my memory's going bad. I think there's video of it. Maybe it's just in my mind because I can picture those two goofballs doing that.
And, and something funny not funny, cool. I find it super cool is not the part where Matt Howell has retired from racing. That's not the cool part. I get it though. I walked that same path myself, but that Dawson Allington bought his car and raced it this past weekend. So it's very
Baby Jeep Racing, I think.
Baby Jeep Racing. What was Matt's car? The 4510?
4510, yeah.
4510. Every time I see it, it reminds me of Super Dave Osborne.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it reminds me of Super Dave Osborne's.
Because he always, I mean, just like his hair, his car was always polished. I mean, if he wrecked a corner, I mean, they would replace the corner. I mean, that car looked showroom every time it showed up to a race.
Every time. Beautiful car. Dawson Allington, man, you got a good car, man. It was good to see you race this weekend, even though I didn't catch up with you. So we're talking about, West Texas, Pecos, Sierra Blanco, racing out there, oil and gas. But now, you went to work for Zandy. How did you meet? So Zandy's kind of like I said, the figurehead, the guy over Rufus Racing. And then he's got a handful of different businesses, but how did you and Zandy flange up?
So it's kind of weird. I mean, you go wheeling up in Clayton and up in Oklahoma and drink beer with people. And, I've met some of my best friends out there, doing this stuff. And one of our buddies, Logan, we call him Lulu, Logan got Zandy to come out to King of the Hammers the last year that I raced with Hammers. So that had to be with Doug and that had to be 18. And he came out and wanted to see what this whole King of the Hammers thing was about. And he came home and he goes, I want to buy a car. Well, he bought a car and I talked him into the Doug's and walked him through the whole deal. And I knew the car and knew he was getting a good car. He's like, all right, I need somebody to drive it. I'm like, I put my hand up. I'm like, hell, I'll drive it. I'll show you how to do this stuff. I've been around it a long time, long enough. So we started doing it. So we started going to different races. And it was just me racing with Brad in the car. And I was in oil and gas still, but I was taking a lot of time off from work. And it got to the point where I was taking advantage of things. And I think it was when we were down in Mexico, down in San Felipe. I'm like, look, if we want to keep doing this, you've got the staffing company. I know oil and gas. Why don't we start an oil and gas side of it? He goes, man, that sounds like a great idea. Well, that turned into me being in the race shop for 8 months. But, that's kind of how it started. Because then we bought Nightmare, which was unexpected. And then we bought Whacker's car, which was even more unexpected. So we show up at King of the Hammers, and we've got our 3 cars. I didn't know which car I was going to race, Whacker's or Doug's old car. And he had Nightmare, and then we had the guys, Pip Justice and the guys from Australia that have Daryl Gray's old car, which was Lauren Healy's winning car back in 12, we think. And then we decided to build these Razors to go pre-running, which turned into a, hey, I'm faster than you between Zanny and I. So we entered those in the King of the Hammers. So for 8 months, I was in the shop. I had a broken back in the middle of that. And we're coming back from Hammers this year, and he goes, man, this shit's expensive. He goes, if we want to keep doing this, we gotta go make some money. I'm like, all right, what do you want me to do? He goes, here's a company. I want you to go run it. So I run Eco Earthworks, which is a dirt construction company, and COVID hit. And I'm going to tell you, on our side, COVID was a blessing for us because we haven't stopped. I mean, because people were at home, we were regrading yards, and companies were, rethinking what they're doing. And to me, it was just easy. I could roll down the highway at 30,000 pounds and nobody jumping out in front of me in DFW and get through town in 45 minutes instead of 3 hours.
Yeah, it is awesome.
So it was that's kind of how that whole thing worked. And, we're still kicking today.
So that is solid. Yeah. And then Zandy has even some further things. Cause I mean, I'm going to back it up just a little bit. So you guys invited me out to Texplex to Midlothian. Right. There was another race going on that weekend. I don't remember what was going on.
They had a bunch of UTV races, and Zanny and I wanted seat time. So I went and talked to the guys and said, hey, why don't you let us run a 4,400 class? And they're like, okay. And they had seen us out there practicing. So I set this race up for us just to test and tune. And I ended up 2 weeks before that crushing my hand and couldn't drive. So Brad, my wonderful co-driver, he's like, I'll drive, as he always does. I think we had 5 cars. It was Zandy, Brad, Cody St. Clair, Jay Aiken.
That's right.
It was only 4 cars. It was kind of cool to show something different than UTVs down there. It's a short course race. And that's when you came down there.
So I actually had it on my calendar because in January, they put out this, Texas pre-runner calendar for that place. And that was going to be a pre-runner weekend. So I'd had it on my calendar, and every single time that pre-runner weekend was going to happen, either I had something or it poured down rain.
Yep.
So
that pre-runner course goes through all kinds of creeks.
And it was always muddy. So I'm like, well, you know what? I'm committing. My son, I was like, you know what? We're going to go. Been in conversations regularly with Hunter Miller, who is the King of the Hammers UTV champ from this past year.
And he doesn't live very far from us either.
No. Yeah. Right. He's up in your neck of the woods, him and his brother. And then, the Hart and, man, there's so many great racers in that area that were Kyle Cheney, who RJ Anderson was there. It's a legit series. And so they had the pre-runner thing going on that day that they canceled because it rained. When I left Houston, it was pouring down rain. It didn't stop raining until we got somewhere north of Waco. And then we got there and I was like, okay, if the pre-runner thing is going on, I am not doing it. I can't believe how muddy my truck got just in the parking lot. Like it was just slopping. It was bad. And that thing, it is a two-wheel drive, but with, full locker rear, it amazingly goes pretty damn well in mud.
So I just remembered when you and I met in person, that's when you debuted that truck at King of the Hammers and you got it stuck in the sand.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Buried that fucker. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Pretty much every time I've stopped that truck in sand, I've buried it.
It don't stop.
Well, that's the key, but it doesn't always work out, best laid plans. Right. So yeah, we came up there and you guys were doing this I'm going to call it ULTRA4 Expedition. What do you call it? Extravaganza. No, that's not the right word. Exhibition.
We were just
exhibition. Yes, that's the right word. Wow, I had to dig that one out. But no, Hunter had been trying to get my son to come up to. Basically, he's a baseball player, but I really would like him to race. And every time I come to an event, just like this past weekend, hey, when are you getting another car? Well, I'm going to probably get another car when my 13-year-old decides he wants to race. And right now he's all into baseball. So Hunter is like, listen, he won't fit in any of the smaller cars. We're going to do this naturally aspirated 1000 class. He's perfect for it. Bring him. So this little dude, I think he was only 12 at that point, but now he's 13 now. And he has national champions, Can-Am sponsored factory drivers twisting his arm and telling him, you need to do this. Drive. Yeah. It's go time. And he's like, no, he doesn't get it. And, maybe in the future, somebody will, he'll look back and be like, wow, I had like the names, like the who's who in UTV racing telling me I need to get into this. And I didn't get it. Well,
I think every kid should do that. I mean, it's expensive. And, us being type A personalities, like, no, I want to drive. But I think that leads kids, especially in today's world with all the electronics, that would lead them in a different direction.
That's exactly what I want. I want less Fortnite, more shop time. That's what he needs in his life. That's what I need in my life. I know I like bouncing around, right? So you're a Harley guy.
Well, it's funny. I just became a Harley guy. We went to Sturgis here
3 months ago. Yeah,
and we took the Groms. And, we've done this too. We did it last year too. We take 4 Groms up there. We ride all through Sturgis. I think last year in 19, I think we put 150 miles on the Groms. And those things are so quiet, you hear people laughing at you.
Yes. Well, explain what a Grom is. I know what a Grom is, but a lot of people maybe don't.
Just like a mini bike that's street legal, 125 cc's. Honda makes them. And of course, ours are all wrapped like the Texas flag. They're our pit bikes. I mean, I've ridden this thing through hotels in like Havasu. We've taken them to Mexico. I mean, we take them everywhere. And we take them to Sturgis. So we did it last year. This year, we took them again, drove through Deadwood. And, I'm really excited that we're going to be at Sturgis in 2021 with ULTRA4. It's going to be huge at the Buffalo Chip. It's a cool course. But we rent Harleys, which was my first mistake. And we ran for 2 days because I got ADD. I mean, I buy and sell cars, race cars, Jeeps, whatever. I'm going to get bored with this in a week.
Well, Brad asked me to ask you, Brad asked me to ask you, how many cars have you owned in your life?
I think I'm knocking on 60. I mean, at one point I had 3 of them and they range. I mean, I've had a Hummer and I've had a Viper and a Lotus. Doesn't mean I make a lot of money. It's just, I didn't do other things. I just bought cars and I would rotate them every 6 months. And I think 60 is my number right now. So we rent these bikes in Harley, up in Sturgis. And we had them for 2 days. We were there for 2 more days. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to extend these. So I call the Harley dealership. They're like, well, no, not only can we not extend them, you were supposed to be here 30 minutes ago and the people are here waiting for the bikes. I'm like, oh, crap. So me and Brad and Peanut, we get on the bikes, we ride them in there. And ADD kicks in, and I drive out with a 2020 Street Glide. And I've put a lot of miles on it since.
And it's black. It's beautiful. It's something else.
It's solid black. Edie loves it. I mean, she'd never ridden on a Harley. I never had ridden on a Harley before. And we did the Black Hills, put 250 miles on it there. It's sitting in the garage right now with 1,400 miles on it. We're leaving tomorrow to go down to Banderas to ride the Twisted Sister route down in South Texas. And it's a cool, different avenue. It gets me, out of racing, out of work, and just something that her and I can enjoy together. And
have your own thing, right? Get away from kids,
exactly.
get away from the headaches and the heartaches, right?
Right.
Or where you guys staying? You guys staying like Fredericksburg?
It's a town called like Utopia, and I'm not real familiar with it down there.
Not familiar with it either.
But we're taking the RV down there and putting the bikes behind it, and we're going to leave tomorrow night. And if we don't make it, we'll stay wherever whatever Walmart I can find, and make it down there on Friday.
Sounds like you guys are really roughing it.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, and that's kind of cool thing about racing. I mean, you see all kinds of cool. That's one thing I've enjoyed about the past 2 years. I mean, we've been to both coasts. We've been into Mexico. We're down to the Baja 1000. I mean, I actually like driving to the races. I mean, hell, Reno, I think Sacramento was, 1,800 miles for us. And you see some cool things.
Haul. I think Moab's a haul. I think Moab's hard to get to. For me, it just seems like a hard one to get to. Feels like King of the Hammers from Houston is just a one shot. Yeah, I literally get on I-10 and then I get off at Palm Springs.
Right. Exactly. Hammers, I used to think was like this long ways, but after going to Reno and Sacramento and, it's weird to say that San Felipe, Mexico is closer to here than going to Hammers. Yeah. It's way closer than going to Reno or Sacramento.
Oh yeah. By half a day.
And, that's why I was so disappointed that Nationals, was at Davis, Oklahoma, because that was a whole 67 miles from my house. It was bad. It was a horrible drive.
Are you that far north? You're in Carthage? No.
I'm right outside Denton. Where the 35s merge back together.
What's the university there? University of North Texas?
University of North Texas.
The Mean Green. What is the Mean Green? I don't even know what that is.
I don't know. They got a bunch of green stuff on their college, so they think they're mean. I don't know. My sister graduated there, so maybe I should ask her.
Right. No, that's sad that neither of us know. So we always talk about, chip happens and some things like that, and you're a prankster, but you have this uncanny ability to catch things on fire, like vehicles.
Yeah, I do.
And for owning 60 vehicles in your life, based on that and you don't always burn down your own stuff. You burn down other people's stuff.
Now, I've only burned down other people's stuff. That's the better part of this. And what's even funnier is the first one that burned down was Brad and I went in together and bought a 40-foot diesel pusher. This is back around 08, 09. And we had it up at the ranch. And, Brad and I are a whole lot alike, but sometimes very polar opposite. And I was driving into the ranch, and he's like, dude, don't try to make it up to the hill of the house. And I'm like, it's raining, it's muddy. I'm like, screw it, I'm trying it. Well, I blow out 3 of the rear 4 tires, end up leaving it. A month later, of course, it happens at the stroke of midnight into Halloween. I get a call from my dad. He goes, hey, I need you to come to the ranch. I'm like, why? It's like 11 o'clock. Well, actually, he called Brad because my phone was dead and tells Brad this. And he goes, you need to come get your bus out of the driveway. And Brad's like, why? He goes, it's on fire. I'm like, so my phone's dead. They think I've gone up I was living in Houston time. They think I've gone up and burned the bus down, but it had a short in the refrigerator and burned to the ground, blew out all the windows of my dad's house. Brad also happens to own a fire sprinkler company, which makes it even better. Fast forward 5 years, this last year, I go to work for Zandy, and I have a company truck, brand new F-350, 2019. We got most of the race team up there. We were celebrating Logan's bachelor party. We go wheeling around the ranch, and I get the same phone call from my dad. Hey, you got to come get your truck out of the driveway. Why? It's on fire. I burnt down a brand new 2019 F-350. I was like, not only am I going to lose my job, I'm not going to be able to race anymore, and it wasn't my fault. We might have had some fireworks that relit, burned the truck to the ground.
Well, I mean, insurance paid, right?
Oh yeah, and that's the funny part. It's never been on my insurance. It's always somebody else's.
So that truck, when that truck burned, was really the first shock for me. I'd heard about the aluminum duties, but I never really, I guess, expected it to burn the way it did. There was nothing left.
There was, it's funny because we got back, and this is even the sadder part. Zandy's mom had passed away. She had been sick, so he had to go out to West Texas for the funeral. We were leaving at 6 o'clock the next morning to drive out there. We were taking that truck and another truck, which was our buddy KC's truck. It was sitting right in front of it. It melted all the taillights and the camera and everything on the back of the truck. So we're trying to put the fire out before the fire department gets there. And we didn't know that how much magnesium was in a Ford Super Duty diesel motor. We hit that motor with water and it exploded. We had to repaint the whole top of Casey's truck because it splattered. And it went real quick. Now, they did find my keys. Like I had all my, house keys and equipment keys and all that was in the door. None of those burned. They just fell on the ground. They even got business cards, and I know they're around. I haven't seen them yet, but it like burned the edges of my business cards. And it was that quick of a fire. It was crazy.
Just Gonskis. Well,
yeah.
Well, I mean, if anything, it's just don't get around Chip. I mean, that's kind of the thing that Chip happens, right?
Yeah.
It's a theme.
So the funnier part is when I got the next truck, I went to the dealership to pick it up, and it had on the back of the 18-wheelers, the danger signs, the flammable and all that. It had one of those zip tied to the grill.
Which I think is only fair.
Hey, I didn't get fired and I still get to race cars.
that you do. All right, man. I want to talk about y'all's race efforts. I want to talk about King of the Hammers this past year and kind of how you guys had a very good showing. And then this year you've had a very good showing. Again, nationals, you worked your way up. Where did you finish in the national point series this year? You were close.
This year, I think it was 18th. I went in 10th, and because we didn't finish and lost all the points. I mean, there was only 100 points between 10th and 3rd.
Yeah,
so it was a big shakeup. Didn't do as well as we wanted, neither Zandy or I. But in everything that is a negative, there's always good. I mean, my feeling is we made a statement. I'm getting faster. I had a problem with, trying to get out of my head after breaking my back and then, had crushing a finger back, I don't know, it was April or sometime. That was a hard thing to get back in the car, especially after breaking a back. I mean, that's just wild. And then watch Casey Shear break his back 2 weeks after I did mine. It shows you how quick things could change for you. But we made a statement. I mean, I started driving faster. Zandy started driving faster. We bring a huge crew with us. I mean, the core of Rufus Racing is only 6 or 7 guys, but we show up to a race like Oklahoma. I think we had, 50 people out there wearing Rufus gear.
Well, I can say that's when I showed up at Midlothian, and I got sidetracked on that story. When I walked up to the Rufus trailer, you and Edie weren't there, in that you guys had the full awning out off the side of the 18-wheeler, right. And that's what you raced out of this 18-wheeler with the full awning. Yep. There wasn't a single car under the awning, but it was standing room only, shoulder to shoulder with people. And this was during, COVID was fully on and there wasn't a mask to be seen.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, Zandy, he's not a public person. You don't see, a lot of people know who I am. They don't know who Zandy is. The dude's a funny dude. He's a great dude. He's a very giving guy. One of his mottos in life is, let's go make memories. We might not finish a race, but I'm going to tell you, we got some of the best stories and pranks and just a hell of a lot of fun, and that's what Rufus Racing's about. Neither one of us have ended up on a podium. The only time I've been on a podium was last year. I got 3rd in the East Coast Series. I haven't podium. I've come close a number of times, but I've not been on the podium during a race. And, we're having a hell of a lot of fun doing it.
See, that's where I'm at. It's always, I can't always tell you who won the race, but I can always tell you who I remembered from the race. It's whoever was put on the biggest show. Somebody that was a show.
You talked to Brad and, we talked about me breaking my back and he drove for me at nationals. I'm sure he asked you to ask me about the highlight reel of last year's nationals.
No, I actually don't. I don't think that made it. He asked me to ask some things like your relationship with Tanya Harding.
Oh yeah. We'll get to that in a second.
Right. And then, there's some other good stuff on there, but we can skip that. But yeah, so the highlight reel for Nationals last year, 2019.
Brad was my fill-in for Nationals. My back was broken, so I was in the pits. And he was going, his last chance qualifier. He was doing really good earlier. He broke a tie rod, or a Heim on the tie rod. So he didn't get to finish one of the race. So he ended up in the LCQ. And he was going against All South Jeff.
Okay.
All South Jeff was ahead of him and got in that last rock section, and his car went in limp mode. And I started screaming in the radio. I was like, go, 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 go. Brad hit that last rock section, jumped half the rock section, and got across it and ended up hitting the big tractor tire at the K-rail 4 foot from the finish line, flipped, was disoriented, and didn't know where the hell he was.
But he did land wheels down though, right?
He did.
Yeah.
But also Jeff snuck around him because he was reaching up to hit the kill switch because he thought he was upside down. And so he missed it just like milliseconds. He reminds me, he goes, now nobody knows who won that race or whatever, but they know that video made the highlight reel. He goes, what have you done? And I'm like, you are such a jackass.
Completely honest.
Showed up last week or something. He reminded me of it.
Yeah, but hey, put you in your place, right? Just set you up.
Yeah.
Gave you a tune-up, old hand.
Yeah. So the Tanya Harding deal, I was on World's Dumbest Drivers. It was funny because I didn't know it. I'm sitting there watching TV, watching World's Dumbest Drivers, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that looks familiar. I'm like, holy crap, that's me. And it was King of the Creek. Roland Bale had done it down at Spring Creek, had done this race, and I'd gone down there to race it. Ended up winning it. The guy behind me blew a transmission or something, and it started on fire. So they were really making fun of him. But Tanya Harding was like, so what do you win if you win King of the Creek? You get the prom date with a pregnant chick, or I don't remember what she made. But, yeah, they were making fun of me on World's Dumbest Driver. So that's where that story comes from.
You got to break your back in the future. So something I always ask is, what's your advice for guys getting into this sport? What's your advice for guys looking for sponsors? What's your advice for guys that are, or maybe they're even current drivers? What's some advice? Because I have a new nugget that I want to drop here after I get your side of it. Well,
I always say drugs are cheaper, even with rehab. I'm thankful, the only way I'm racing is because what Zandy and Andrew, Zandy's wife, what they're doing for the team. Without them, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. We don't have any sponsors. And, we have a media person who knows marketing. We bring a videographer to every race. Now, COVID's been a little different. He wasn't with us in Moab or Tennessee, but, we've got a lot of really professional done videos. Me and Zandy and the group of us, we put together a package, a media package to send to people. And, to date, we don't have one. And it's, a lot of people think, I'm going to go race this professional thing called King of the Hammers, and sponsors are going to come just knocking on the door. And that's not the way it is at all. And, I've looked at what like Lauren and Levi and Vaughn Getton and Shannon Campbell and all them do. And they have a lot of people behind them, and they have a product. They have a character. Their cars are characters, and they're drawing people in. And, so I started like the Facebook and the Instagram page for Rufus Racing.
Well, let me interrupt right there. I do want to back that up a little bit. And a lot of guys supporting them, at most races, or even in the shop time, like Levi Shirley, it's just Levi. And for Eric Miller, it's Eric plus just one.
Yeah.
For Horschel, it's Paul plus one, sometimes Paul plus two. It's
right.
And that's rare. I mean, it's not these big teams where there's 10 guys that are always in the shop or whatever. Yeah. You may see them on race day and they've got 5 guys or 10 guys, depending. Like, so you guys, you were an hour from home or an hour and a half from home or 2 hours from the Metroplex. You pull a big crowd because family and friends, this is the closest you'll be that they can come watch you race. So they can easily come out. And so you get that, the kind of, let's call it the hometown crowd, which is awesome. It makes you feel great. But yeah, I mean, people like, oh my gosh, like Campbell's are the prime example. This past weekend, I mean, if Campbell wasn't your last name or you weren't engaged to a Campbell, I mean, they did have
exactly
2 of the guys there, plus Doug, who's their truck driver. I mean, if it wasn't for that little, they do everything themselves. It's not like pit crews. Pit crews are, multiple pit crews multiple guys will pit for multiple cars because it's like this. Yeah. I would rather beat, those guys out on the, so you team up. It's this, I think that's why Ultra4 is such this family oriented, because we know it takes all of us to get.
It takes an army.
Yeah. Oh God, it does. So,
even like us, we've got 3 cars. It's John Fry and Diamond Dave in the shop every day. Those 2 guys keep the race cars together. I used to be in the shop every day, and I'm running a construction company now. So it's kind of a detriment to me on the race car side. I'm making money for us, but I don't know every bolt and nut of the car like I normally do. And, like here we're in Dallas, NASCAR, I think, got to run today. They were supposed to run on Sunday. Those guys got multiple cars. Tomorrow they've got to be somewhere else. So I know they sent another team with cars and, they can go race this weekend. We don't have that. We have sometimes at least as 3 weeks, maybe 6 weeks to turn a car around. And these cars take a horrible beating. I mean, hell, we got to pull 2 motors, for these cars. Thankfully, we got 3 months before hammers. But it's amazing on what Ultra4 does. I mean, Lauren Healy, they're in Moab. JT, all their cars race this weekend. I mean, JT doesn't race anymore, but the guys that are, at that Moab show and even at the Sand show that got canceled 2 weeks ago, their cars were there.
Yeah. So I saw Von Gitten's Brocky is there right now. That car was on the podium. It was 3rd place. He got 3rd place, 4,400 race, and it's there. I got to believe all Lauren did, pull it off the trailer, hose it down, wash it down and detail it, armor all it, whatever it took, and then roll it into place. It has not been, and probably put fresh panels on it. It probably got fresh panels, but it's still totally worn out. By the way, I got to bring up, I saw something.
Right.
I got to bring up something in your notes. It's, I saw the memes of KOH meme on that. And it's the cartoon of the third place podium guy. He's blasting himself with champagne. He's just having it's
beautiful.
And then they zoom out and it's the dude's like in 3rd place. In the 1st place and 2nd place, they're like, what the hell, doing? 3rd place? Yeah. Well, then literally real life, mimics. And
Vaughn sprays himself.
Yeah, he's going to town with his champagne, and you got Eric Miller standing on the podium with Paul Horschel in the 2nd place podium, and they're both looking at Vaughn like,
what are you doing?
What the hell, dude?
It was beautiful.
I loved it. Whoever caught that and whoever captured that and whoever, made, oh man.
You
I'm
brought
still laughing.
Memes. To me, it's an honor to make memes. Like it's like any, well, let me phrase that. Most publicity is good publicity, like on memes. And I always find great humor, no matter how goofy it is. But, bringing up like Facebook and Instagram and me trying to figure out as an engineer, I got numbers and stuff in my head and views and likes and blah, blah, blah. I found the stupidest crap gets more views and more attention than the professional videos. Like we did that stupid rain dance in Tennessee when we took the 43 TSLs and we were going to race on them. So we did a rain dance just to piss everybody off. And it rained 20 minutes before the starting. And I got a text from Alan. He's like, "You're an asshole." And I'm like, "This is beautiful." Now, granted, it didn't work, but that even goes back in the day. And I know when I say this, you're gonna remember it. But back, Carl Lamborghini.
Carl.
I cannot say his name right ever again because Mike Stewart made all those middle of the mall shit videos, and he would always say Carl Lamborghini with all his chains and all that. I still think he was a pioneer in this advertising and, public media when we didn't even know what that stuff was. Even today, I'm seeing like our rain dance, the stupidest thing you could ever do. That's the one that got the most views out of everything we've done. And I just think it's interesting on the way that people interact with our race teams.
Well, I think it's, you found your niche, right? And please don't take this as a knock. You're just a fun guy, man. You love having fun. People love to be around you that love to have fun. So if you put out something serious, it comes off as so not genuine because the people that know you are like, that ain't that guy. That's not Chip or, you know. I mean,
that's exactly it. And, that goes back to the happy birthday with JT. I know it drives him crazy. He's gotten even with me. And, every time we see him, we yell happy birthday. And we were at King of the Hammers running the UTV class, and Diamond Dave got to ride with me. And I come into Guacamole, new trail, hadn't run it yet. I heard it was easy. And I shoot off the side of the ravine and end up upside down in the ravine before even the hard part of Guacamole. And Diamond and I come crawling out of the car to flip it over. And who drives up but JT Taylor? And I'm like, oh, great. I just screwed up. And here's JT making fun of me. He goes, you all right? And I said, yeah. Happy birthday. He flipped me the bird and he drove off. And, that's the way our life is. I mean, I flipped him off one time in Tennessee and ran smack right into a tree because I wasn't paying attention. And that's, those are the memories I remember. And it's a lot of fun. I'd rather have those memories, and nobody remember who won that race.
Well, I think, people are like, wow, this is just kind of a diatribe here. But I think, the gist of it is, and if you boil it down to, is finding, like, knowing who you are, and then leveraging that talent. Don't try to be someone who you're not, for marketing of your race team, marketing of your race efforts or whatever. Be you. Be you as best as you can be you, and just own the shit out of it. I mean, that's the only, like, my word for that is just, you just have to own it, and you got to take it to that, like, next level. And whatever that equals, if it's, having a videographer to follow you around, or if it's TikTok, whatever it is, own the hell out of it. I mean, that's kind of where I go with that, man. That's
where the Chip happens comes from.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing but, so, philanthropy, man. We jumped on it a little bit ago when the day that you got diagnosed, you got the call about having cancer. Yep. You and Doug Jackson had put together some stuff. You guys were going to head down here to the Texas Gulf Coast from North Texas to help with the Hurricane Harvey effort. I mean, that was one of the most devastating hurricanes to hit the Texas coast in recent history. I ended up heavily involved in that. My neighborhood flooded. We had the Brazos River was at flood stage. There was water in my neighborhood. My wife was using one of my Humvees to deliver medications around, the neighborhood. Chris Summers, BJ Allen, all the guys over at Barco Pump. Yep. We got together with them, and they sent down a 18-wheeler after 18-wheeler of big, huge pumps. Yep. And we built a supplemental pumping station inside my neighborhood in a cul-de-sac in the middle of, $500,000-$600,000 homes. We plopped down, couple $1 million worth of pumps and started pumping water over the levee out to the Brazos River. But you guys came up with, so during that, Doug called me, and it was in the hurricane hadn't even fully come ashore. We were still like rain bands, but we were already flooding, and we had hit mandatory evacuation for my neighborhood. So we bailed, and it's a terrible story, but we were just going to go up to my father-in-law's house, and he said, yeah, come on over. Well, we drive over there. He's in Sugar Land. We're down in Missouri City, Texas. And we get over to his place. We couldn't even get to his house because there was 3 foot of water, 4 foot of water on the street. There's a stop sign with a foot of post showing underneath the stop sign to the water level. Well, he lives on a corner lot. He looked out the front door and he could see the street in front of his house, but he didn't look down the side road, which is the one that you have to come into the neighborhood on. And it's like, you need a boat. And so we could see his house 2 blocks away, and we're calling like, we can't get to you. So we ended up 6 hours later in College Station.
Yeah. Which was what, a normal drive, hour and a half from you?
Maybe hour 20. Yeah. So 6, and we just couldn't get across the river multiple places. Well, anyway, we're sitting there in the hotel room in College Station, Texas. And Doug Jackson calls me and says, hey, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, man, we're good. But we're in College Station. So he goes, well, this is what I'm thinking. Tell me, I want to do something. I think we can fly stuff down there. Well, I think initially it was we're going to put stuff in trailers, and we got to bring stuff down there. Rockport got devastated. Rockport got destroyed, just wiped.
They got horribly destroyed.
And he said, we're going to do something. We're going to do something. What do we need to bring? And I'm sitting in a hotel room. I don't know. And I'm like, waters. I'm just thinking like what I've seen on CNN, right? Diapers, baby formula. I'm just, shouting things out. I mean, I don't know. I remember the thing that Carl McIntyre, if anyone remembers Carl, he used to wheel a a twisted customs buggy, a red twisted customs buggy. I think it's in California now, but he's a Mississippi or Louisiana guy. Carl, during Katrina, he made really good money. He was in the mattress business. And that was the thing that sold out, because whenever the first thing people replace is their bed.
Right.
And if you can't get a good night's sleep, and I was like, mattresses. I don't know, Doug. And that was, I think we talked one more time after that, but next thing I know, you and a crew, including Doug, you guys loaded up a bunch of cattle trailers.
Yeah. That's when Doug owned the trailer company, Texas Custom Trailers out of Decatur. I got a brand new cattle trailer. I had a 1-ton. We filled it, I think I would know I was way overloaded, but I had 7 pallets of water. Around all the water, we put in diapers and dog food and dry food and flashlights and batteries. And then Doug had another, like an enclosed trailer. I think we had 1 or 2 generators in there. And then, even like toothbrushes and toothpaste. I mean, when we rolled into Rockport, we were there before the National Guards were. And, I'd worked other hurricanes before, and of course, we went very heavily loaded with guns and stuff like that. But we got escorted, and just seeing the people come and being gracious on what, we were doing, giving back is just an awesome feeling. And that's where Operation Airdrop came from, was from that weekend. And Doug's got a really good story about a guy showing up with a truck. He didn't have any gas. His dog had stepped on something and it got cut real bad. And one of the guys that had lived down there was like, "Hey, I'm gonna hook you up with my vet. We got his dog fixed up." And then he's like, "Well, we got no power or whatever." And Doug gave him one of the generators. And a week later, this guy, he wasn't a homeless guy, but he showed up dirty, hadn't taken a shower in a while. I mean, we're in the middle of a hurricane. He looked like a homeless person. He shows up a week later, and it looked like he had been through a life-changing event. His hair was brushed. His teeth were brushed. He had clean clothes on. You wouldn't even recognize the guy. And he came back just to tell us thank you. And that was a cool, you got to get back. I mean, you can't keep taking in this world and not ever get back, because your time's coming. And that's where Operation Airdrop came from. And then that's also when Brad and I decided to legitimize the Texas First Responders Fund, which is Brad and I's.
Well, before we jump into that, let's talk about Texas Airdrop real quick. It is Doug Jackson's deal. I definitely get that, but since we've name dropped it a couple times, these guys take airplanes, their personal airplanes, private airplanes, and a lot of people have airplanes, and they load them. They load them with as much supplies as they can, and it's the weight, and then they take off. And I think on that one, and Doug would probably have to give the deals, but there was 500 or 600 planes that got volunteered for that effort. I think Operation Airdrop, on their website, they have a running tally of how many tons of aid that they've delivered. I think that's where I saw it last, and it's a very significant number. And it didn't start and end with Harvey. They've gone all the way down. They ended up all the way down in Puerto Rico, even delivering supplies. That was like 4 weeks later. And then even in between there was Florida. That's right. And it just, those 2 months were just stupid crazy. Versus he was flying. I bet he put more hours on his plane then than he has since the whole time he's had it. Oh, absolutely. He talked about, the last time I talked to him, he said he hardly flown his twin engine this year, but this year you're just flying in and out of Louisiana. They've taken 5. Yep. Take one for the team, Louisiana. Texas has been very happy with having you guys as a neighbor. Right. But you guys start up your Texas First Responders Fund, and that's where the other thing I've seen you guys do is the thing that I see the most, which I know this isn't all of it, but one of your big fundraisers is you guys raffle off a really awesome rifle. Yeah, Chris Summers actually was the first one to win the first one, and we get him Cerakoted with the fall, the blue line and the red line and all that. And we also do we call it crawling for the fallen. We'll go do a wheeling trip at Bridgeport or at the ranch or something, and that really legitimized right about the time Airdrop was, and that was 4 years ago. It was 3 years ago, but Brad and I had been doing this, I think, since around 2004. And it really started because, I guess kind of back up about my family. I've got 2 sisters and a brother.
My younger sister's adopted, and my parents were foster kids when they were growing up, and she was the last foster kid to come through it. And so we actually started raising money for, the foster kids, in the county where the ranch is. And then Dad came and said, he goes, they got plenty of money in the bank. So we started looking for other things. And up here, we got a guy called Russ Martin on the radio that gives, $20,000-$30,000 to families that, lost a fallen officer. So we piggyback with that, gave him a lot of money. But then was it July 5th or 6th, I think 5 years ago, when the 5 officers got slain in downtown Dallas.
Right. They got ambushed.
And that, that hit Brad and I in our families pretty hard. We had some American flags made, and the stars were 9mm bullet shells were all the stars. And it was just black and gray with a blue line. And today, we auctioned off, raised like $2,000 for that thing. The person that bought that was a friend of ours in Houston. She donated it back, and it's in the Dallas PD headquarters. We got to go down and, give it to them. And we met the families that were affected, from those officers that died. So, it's something special to us. And, I'd like to do more with it. With the COVID thing, it's been kind of hard to do this year. We've had some things cancel, but, that's something we're passionate about.
I think it's been not teared up here, but I'm just, I look at you and hear what you're saying, and I've, see your passion into this, and, makes me reflect and be like, man, I'm doing stuff, but I'm not doing enough. We're not giving back enough. And you're setting the bar really high. You really are, man. Hard to follow in your footsteps on all the stuff that you guys have busted out for your community.
Well, it's something dear to us. And, the way I look at it is, those guys, whether it be police or firefighters or the guys that drive the ambulance or, even the military, our worst days are the days that they shine. And why wouldn't you want to give back to those guys? And especially in today's environment when there's a lot of anti-police and anti-military, and, if people really understood the ramifications of those guys went away, I mean, we're back to the Wild West. And a lot of people don't know how to use guns these days. So it's not, PlayStation or whatever.
Yeah. You don't get, your buddy can't run over and recharge you. You don't get a,
Exactly.
respawn. I mean, it's you're one and done. You get one.
Yeah. So it's something cool for us.
Well, as we run towards the finish line here on this, the last big line item that I want to talk to you about, which I think you know quite a bit about, and I've learned a little bit about, recently, is what is going on next July, like late July, up in Jay, Oklahoma.
Oh man, this thing is cool.
Let's roll through.
I'm horrible at keeping secrets, and I've known about this for a little while, but Mid-America in July, they're having an 8-day event where they're
Mid-America Off-Road Park.
Yeah,
Jay, Oklahoma. Northeast Oklahoma, just northwest of Grand Lake.
Tulsa.
Well, northeast of Tulsa.
Yeah, it's 15 miles from Disney.
Yeah, Disney, Oklahoma. People say Disney, you're like, what, Florida? No, Disney, Oklahoma. Wheeling location. That's a good wheeling location,
And this guy, Jason, I guess it's a couple years old. I just recently discovered it. The campgrounds and the way that this guy has set up this park is amazing, but he's bringing basically, I'm going to call it King of the Hammers to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But it's not just 4,400. It's mega trucks, mud bog trucks, bounty killing, hill killing.
Jason Robinette.
Yes.
I probably said that wrong.
Guy.
Super nice guy. But
you met him this weekend. I saw him and he was looking at me. He's like, I kind of know you from somewhere. I was like, yeah, I was at your event a while back. But imagine going to King of the Hammers and having
swim up pool, like a swim up bar
with free beer.
The whole park, not just the bar, the whole park is free beer because they did some economic calculations, said they couldn't get a liquor license or it was going to be so much money that they'd rather just give it away.
Well,
so
they have a liquor license.
Oh, they do. I said, yeah, that wasn't even the story that I was told.
Though. And it was, we went up there for the Outlaw race here a while back, and I was just blown away at this park. Now, to hold an ULTRA4 course out there, it hasn't, the trails haven't been broke in yet, and it's kind of easy for us. But the park's amazing. And the rumors are, and it is, you know, I don't know if they're still going to do it, but for 4,400, it's an invite only. And I think there's 20 or 25. But the reason that is they're going to make 25 teams, and they're going to pick a driver from each class. And your collective times from each class are who wins the purse. That's like $300,000 in purses.
It's a big number, is what he told me. And
yeah,
and I got pulled into the conversation by Dave Cole. Dave Cole that leaves the conversation talking with Jason. They've known each other. They're working on this thing. He walks through the crowd, grabs me, drags me back across the crowd, and says, Wyatt, you need to meet this guy. Jason, you need to meet this guy, Wyatt. And we get to talking. I'm like, what? I know where Jay, Oklahoma. Wait, I think I know where Jay, Oklahoma is. And he confirmed it's up near Grove. You know, it's Miami, Oklahoma. It's, you know, northeast of Tulsa, just off the Will Rogers Turnpike. I'm like, yeah, okay. 8 days, concerts. They've got cabins. They've got RV hookups. The swim up bar was nuts. I didn't know it. The beer is gratis with your ticket at the gate.
Yep.
Yeah. UTV Racing, 4,400 Racing. They're having monster trucks out there. They were going to do some
stump bikes, I think, too.
Yep. Bikes. I mean, just motocross, or he just kept rattling stuff off. And I'm like, it sounds like Sturgis for off-roaders. And he's like, that's exactly, you know, like what we're going after. We're going after, like, there's something for everybody, and it's going to be in Jay, Oklahoma. This is where you're going to mecca to. And I'm like, well, in February, I'm mecca to Means Dry Lake. And in July, I'm going to mecca my ass to Jay, Oklahoma. I'm like, all right, I'm in.
It's kind of weird because, you know, Dave Cole, you know, a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with him, but he's an idea guy, 100%.
Huge idea
Jason's the same way.
Huge idea guy.
I think the two collaborations there, you know, going to be pretty cool.
In I don't know Jason from that regard. I don't know anything about him in that regard. But I do know what I do know about Dave is big idea guy that has the means and wherewithal to pull it off.
Yep.
You know, win, lose, or fail, whatever it is, he will pull it off, and then maybe like, okay, that was terrible. We won't do that again. Or like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we pulled that off. That was amazing. Now, next time we're going to do it 3 times as big. So
exactly. I can't imagine what the next one's going to be.
I don't know, but I saw in Dave Cole his passion about what Jason had going in Jay, Oklahoma. And I knew you were involved in that because I'd seen you pushing that on social media just a week before. It's called Mid-America Off-Road Park. Is it called Off-Road Park?
Yep.
Mid-America Off-Road Park in Jay, Oklahoma. And yeah, mark it on your calendars, guys. I mean, next July, I think it's July the 22nd. I think is the
third week in July, I believe.
Yes.
And it's
somewhere there.
Like right. And I'm not looking at the calendar, but I think it's like right before we race in Sturgis. And then I forget where we are 2 weeks later.
There's a June race and then an August race, but I think the closest August race would be Vegas to Reno.
No, August. The first week of August is Sturgis. We're somewhere else the weekend. I think it's Moab maybe, but yeah, it's going to be a quick turnaround for us, but it's something we definitely want to be involved in. And, you know, that's something that Rufus Racing and Zandy and the guys, you know, we've been doing 4,400. We might start looking into other series. You know, I'd love to go do, you know, some of the Mexico races. Yeah. You know, we're going to see what goes on.
At least get your feet wet at Nora or something along those lines.
Nora just sounds like a blast to me. I mean, going across the finish line, getting tacos and beer, I'm in.
You look like it. I mean, it looks like something that, I mean, me too. I mean, that looks like my kind of race.
I just got to make it to the finish line first.
Right. Well, hey, Chip, did we cover everything you wanted to cover?
Yeah.
Am I missing any stories? I know we're missing stories.
God, there's so many stories. We'd have to have a whole nother show on that. But, you know, Rufus Racing, we're just a group of guys having fun. You know, Zadie pulled it together, and there's Diamond and Fry and Peanut and Brad, and, you know, more the merrier. And we help other teams, you know, especially like Australians and then Hooper and those guys. We're just making memories and having fun. Well, that's what it's about.
I love the fact that, you know, you've been involved in rock sports we're going on the better part of 2 decades, leading, you know, in a 3rd decade here, and you're still just as passionate today about it as you were back then. Don't get me wrong. Nothing is a flat line all the way up. I know there's been the highs, the lows, the sideways, the broken backs here, the broken hearts there. God. But
I just think it's cool to go race with, you know, idols and, like in Oklahoma this past weekend, I was sitting there going, man, there's a lot of who's who here. And I'm just like, feel like, Zanny and I are these nobodies. And, we made a point this weekend and our team did. We didn't get across the finish line, but we can run with the big guys. And I think that's what's cool about it. An average everyday Joe can get in and mix it up. And if you got some talent, you can go just like these other guys. You're not much different.
Well, I want to give 2 shout outs right there of things that I saw this weekend in the 4,400 race on that level. Nate Williams, or yep. Nate Jesse.
Yep.
He finished 7th in nationals.
Yep.
7th. Nate's had a car 2 years. He's a new driver. He hadn't raced before. And here we are. He finished 7th in that field. And then I saw Matt Burkett. He's a North Texas guy.
The reason Matt was racing is because Jab Nasty was in the passenger seat with my helmet on.
That's fair. All fair statements, but Burkett finished 10th. When was the last time Burkett raced a race, and when was the last time he raced an ULTRA4 race?
And finished.
And I don't know that ever. I mean, I'm sure he's finished. I'm sure he's finished.
He did. And, he's had a lot of struggles with that car, with motors, and he started with Ford and went to Chevy. And
it is a TTB car.
Yeah.
So it needs some serious tuning, but I don't know Burkett at all. I've never met him. I've raced against him one other time, so I don't really have anything to go off of. But the fact that the car hasn't been run in who knows how many years it seemed like, and he shows up, pulls off a 10th place at ULTRA4 Nationals.
That's cool.
Like, that's cool. Dude. And who finished 11th?
I have no idea.
Josh Blyler.
Oh, yeah.
Current king, and was, he did do whatever.
He had some issues, but
Loop B, he did do it 4 times versus 3. I mean, but the thing is, that was still racing. It's still between the green and the checker, and Burkett put it in front of a national champ. So I've got to hand it off to these guys that if you want to dedicate some time to the sport, you would dedicate a whole bunch of money to the sport and have a car, you can run with the big guys. You nerfed Shannon Campbell during this race.
Yep.
Off-road Hall of Famer. I mean, and
right. Well, I mean, even look at like Kevin Taylor, which oddly enough is my wife is related to through previous marriage. So I don't know how that actually works, but he ran on 43s and a rock balancer that looks like a Porsche. And I think he finished 14th.
It was one of the more noticeable cars. Yeah. Like you can always pick out his profile and Bailey Cole's profile in the cars. It gets messy when there's like 3 or 4 different Miller Pro chassis and they're covered in mud. You can't tell which is the two
car
big
passing the brown car.
Yeah, the brown car versus the brown car, or the Campbell cars all end up starting to look the same. And you've got Wayland and then Bailey's is far enough apart, but Shannon's, and then you got Levi Shirley. There's enough of them that look or Caprera. If Caprera's car is at the right angle, you can get them confused. But nonetheless, wow, yeah, we just came off a great weekend. It was, man, good to see you, Chip. I'm glad we had you on. Great stories. I just, like I said, you fully impressed me for the last 20 years, and here we are. You're no longer the backup. You're no longer my brake class in case of emergency. I can
say Zandy's the backup because he hasn't been on, and I keep beating him. Maybe, well, he kind of beat me this weekend, but I'll call Zandy the backup now.
Yeah, we'll just call him that, right? I think that's okay. Yeah, hey.
We'll put it on. I'll make a sticker and put it on his car for hammers.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to track him down there.
Backup.
Well, hey guys, I appreciate you guys all tuning in and giving me your time on this episode of the Talent Tank. We're winding down this fall season. We've got 4 more left before Thanksgiving. Man, Thanksgiving's coming at us quick, but that puts us. What that means is we are 3 months from Hammers. 3 months from seeing everybody on the lake.
We're less than 3 months.
It's less. I know. Stop counting. All right, Chip. Chip, thanks for coming on, man.
Appreciate it, Wyatt. Thank you for everything you do, and I love the show. And I learned a lot from the show, so I appreciate you doing this, and I'm grateful for it.
You reminded me. I said I was going to have a nugget about some information a little bit ago when we were talking about sponsors and getting involved and how to get involved, and I didn't drop that nugget. I'm going to interrupt the exit right here, and I'm going to drop that nugget. I saw one thing this weekend that so impressed me. It was one guy. He did it both days. He did it during qualifying, and he did it during the race. When he was done with qualifying, he went to the media trailer, which is the big Nitto 18-wheeler trailer, sat down in the Nitto lounge with Miss Pam Hall and Miles Hasselquist, sat down with them and gave a little post recap of how his qualifying went. And then the next day, during race day on Saturday, He raced, he broke, he did not have a good day. When he got back, his car got back to the pits. He came up there, he walked into the Nitto trailer, sat down in the Nitto lounge, and gave a race recap about what his day was. And so he gave back value to his sponsors. He let all of his fans know and his family know kind of how his day went. I saw one driver do that. It was the same driver. It was both days.
Yep.
Only guy that did it, Waylon Campbell.
Yep. And I learned from that. You'll see me doing that as much as I can. And you got to get over that. My idea was, I don't want to go interrupt those guys. They want you to come in because they're tired of saying, hey, this just coming down to the wire, or whatever other words that Miles used. They can use the interruption. So that's great advice.
You're giving, as a driver, you're giving them extra color. You're giving them depth. You're giving them the backstories about what was going on inside the car. I mean, they can see what goes on outside the car. They've got a drone. I mean, they've got cameras all over the course, and they're getting, people talking to them in their ear about it. But to get from the horse's mouth, right there from the source, it doesn't get any better than that. And that's the one thing I would like to see. And that was just my observation. I'd like to, if there's a line of drivers trying to get in there with them, that's one story, but there was no line. It was just one. I saw Joshua West. He went in there, sat down from one point. And then at one point, Miles grabbed me and made me sit down for a little bit at the very beginning of the 4,400 start. But yes, that's needed. And I hope I said something to Dave and I said something to JT when I was sitting in the F450 with them, basically along those lines. And JT said, yeah, that's a valid point. We should bring that up in the drivers' meetings. Drivers, you want exposure. You're always asking, how can I give back more to my sponsors? How can I get more coverage? Well, man, the live feed, that's what Ultra4 has the live feed for. It's for coverage. Use it. Go sit down in there. Give some live commentary. You may sit there 5 minutes or 10 minutes until there is a spot for you to talk, but they're going to get your story and they're going to be happy about it. And then we're going to know your story. And the more of us know your story, the better odds are we're going to know your name. We're going to know your number. We're going to know your car. We're going to know this stuff. And then your ability to walk into whoever and have a conversation about supporting your program and being a partner in your program gets a little easier.
The other thing to that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. But even the new people coming in, that show up to the race for the first time, don't be afraid to walk into somebody's tent or camp. The Levi Shirleys, the Shannon Campbells, the Lauren Healy's, the Rufus Racing, or whatever. You might leave with it like a team shirt, or hell, you might even be sucked into being on the team, right? Give you a ranch or something. If you want to learn what this is about, don't be afraid to approach the teams. We always need help. Everybody does. It don't matter who you are.
If you know how to, cook bacon or flip pancakes or wrap a burrito, or you know how to actually change out a motor and swap stall converters, there is a place for you. If all you're good at is surfing Facebook and taking pictures and posting up, there is a role for you.
Yes,
there absolutely is.
So it goes both ways. And, I'm glad you brought that up, that, listening to like Levi's and some of the other guys deal about sponsorships, and, Bailey Cole brought it up because, you got to give back. You just can't keep taking. And that's the exact way to do it.
Yep. No, man, Chip, thank you for coming on. Thank you for wrapping up with me. Thanks for the whole catch up. Sorry about just what you and I had, the little hiccup, like pre-recording, but here we go, man. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode of the Talent Tank. I appreciate you guys dialing in and giving me your time and giving Chip your time for listening to us gab along like some girls. All right, guys. Yep. We'll catch you next week. Yep. Chip, we're out.
Thank you for listening and taking a dive into the Talent Tank. Please like and subscribe on Instagram @The Talent Tank or our website, thetalenttank.com.